Welcome to the Patriots Pulse post-game show. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, WEI's John Lyons, and I'm joined by my other partner, Kevin Stone. And we are here to recap the Patriots' 42-13 trouncing of the Carolina Panthers. And fellas, it's been a long time since we've had an ass-kicking like this. It was nice to see.
It certainly was. And you could make the case, John, that the first half the Patriots played, it was the best half of football they played since December of 2023 against the Steelers on that Thursday night game, that first half. It's the best overall game they've played probably since 2021. Remember, they had those two 50-point games, one against the Jets, one against Jacksonville. They had a blowout win against the Browns and the Titans that season as well. So you really got to go back 4 years now to find a game this good. And you look at today, the Patriots played really well offensively. They had huge special teams plays, took care of the ball, and after the first Panthers drive, really locked things down defensively. So all the things that we've kind of been talking about the first 3 weeks that either we wanted to see more of or we wanted them to get better at, they did a really good job in all those phases today.
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing, if you're going to win this type of game against this type of Panthers team, this is how it has to look. Like, that should not have been a 20-13 win or, a walk-off field goal win. This is how it should look against a team that you are better than. So that's what was most impressive to me, is how they won. To your point, John, just, again, getting contributions from special teams, offense, defense. I also thought, so I think they had 5 penalties in the first quarter. You finished the game with 7. So you even cleaned that up during the game as well. Overall, just a good day. And I wrote this in the story we just put up on anyfootballjournal.com. For at least a day, they made football fun again around here, and it's been a while since that happened.
Yeah, I would agree with both you guys. It was nice to see. Now, it didn't start off well. I mean, they gave up an opening drive score, fell behind 6-0. And they went 3-and-out on offense on their first offensive possession. But it's Marcus Jones's 87-yard punt return, which, by the way, I cannot believe he returned that kick. His 87-yard punt return really sparked the team because they didn't look back from that point on. They outscored Carolina 35-7. And I've said this for a while now, John, and you and I have talked about this, the importance of this team needing big plays. It's hard to win at any level of football if you have to consistently go 80 yards and drive the ball. They need to start making big plays, and they needed them wherever they could get them. And they got them today. They got them from their special teams. They got them from their offense. Stephon Diggs had 2 big catches that set up scores. Hunter Henry scores on a 31-yard touchdown catch. They made big plays today. And that was nice to see. And we can sit here and talk about, listen, you got to win a game like this. You got to win it in convincing fashion because you're better than the opponent. We can talk about that all we want. But the fact of the matter is, if they play like this on a week-to-week basis, they're going to win most of the games left on their schedule. It was a complete performance, a 3-phase performance. And I think if you're a Patriots fan, you really have to be happy with what you saw today.
Yeah, John, and you made the point about big plays. You had not just the punt return for a touchdown, you had another long punt return, which resulted in just a 14-yard drive for another touchdown. You had the 33-yard pass that Drake May hit Stephon Diggs on, which, by the way, was a great throw. That set up a Patriots touchdown as well. Hunter Henry had a 31-yard catch and run for a touchdown. Another big play. Austin Hooper had a 24-yard catch and run. So they had a lot of big plays in this game, which is something that really, in their 2 losses especially, we haven't seen any of, right? We talked last week about maybe they'll get Kyle Williams involved or maybe they'll take some deep shots just because they weren't getting any big plays at all in their 2 losses. And it was nice to see that today. Again, this was a bad Panthers team, to Kevin's point. It was a bad defense. Looked like they kind of quit at halftime anyway. But this is what you should do to a team like that. They poured it on. They kept their foot on the gas pedal. They made big plays in all 3 phases of the game. And credit too, this was the first time, John, I think in a very long time, the Patriots were the better team on both sides of the line of scrimmage as well.
John, you also brought up Steph Diggs. That's a huge game from him. I'm looking at 6 for 100.
6-101. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think Jon Sarianides asked him a question post-game. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, but he says he's a 5 out of 10 in terms of being comfortable in the offense. That's a good sign. If he's only 50% right now, you got to assume he's going to get better, get more comfortable, and maybe you do start to see more of him, and that opens stuff up for other guys too. So I thought getting him as involved as he was today was very important too.
Yeah, I made up for the stupid ass fanboy question I asked Marcus Jones. I turned into a coach, and I'm like, I can't believe you fair caught that. And how did you set up your return? And blah. And I'm like, what am I doing? Anyway, no, nonetheless, I agree with both of you on that point. You know, when I asked Stephon Diggs that question, first of all, let me just say this: he was fantastic after the game, and I know that he's been getting a lot of flack. And our good buddy Evan Lazar and I talked about this on the way up, about how the perception of Stephon Diggs is a lot different than the reality, which is, yes, he can be temperamental. Yes, there are times he may not want to speak to the media, but I thought he was fantastic today at the podium. I thought his responses were very detail-oriented. I thought they were well thought out. He was very reflective, and that's nice to see, because if they can get him going, and you saw the impact he can make in this offense today, as you mentioned, Kevin, 6 catches, 101 yards. If they can get him going, that's huge for this offense, because now you have that legitimate number one receiver who can complement your 2 very good tight ends in Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, who can complement the rest of your receiving core, who can complement your backs, who can be 3-down difference makers in this offense, both as runners and pass catchers. If Diggs becomes what we were hoping he would become when they signed him later on this spring, I think that this offense is now going to start to take off. Now, a lot of it also comes down to Drake May being consistent. He was 14 of 17 today for 203 yards, 3 total touchdowns, 2 passing, 1 rushing. But if May can be consistent and they develop that rapport where there's a comfort level there and he consistently gets him the ball, I'm not saying they're going to put up 42 every week, and certainly they scored 35. Jones's punt return was one of the scores. I'm not saying they're even going to put that up every week, but this is going to be a competent offense that will give this team a chance to win games.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the 2 times Drake May has not turned the ball over are the 2 Patriots wins. Like, it's just when he takes care of the ball, things are so much better for this offense. And I know it's stating the obvious, but it's something we talked about all of last year, all off season. We talked about it early this year, and it's borne fruit so far. And you look at too, another thing that was encouraging in this game is it felt like all 3 running backs ran well today. And a lot of that is credit to the offensive line. I thought it was another really good game from Will Campbell. He's kind of had a few of those now. But Stevenson looked pretty good.
Henderson, by the way, John, not to cut you off, I do want to, before you make your next point, I want to give you your flowers. And I think I'm going to give myself some flowers here as well, because Josh McDaniels called a hell of a game today. For all the Josh McDaniels haters out there, they ate the shit sandwich today. He called a really good game today. That vintage McDaniels in many ways.
Yeah, he had Carolina totally off balance, and that's an undisciplined defense, and he took advantage of it, right? You saw, whether it was the end around play to Gibson, and then they fake it the next play to run off tackle with Stevenson. I think that set up their second touchdown of the day, or whatever it was. The touchdown play drawn up to Hunter Henry, that 31-yarder. That was a really nice play design. And on the backs, like Travion Henderson, only 7 carries, but he ran for 32 yards. And that touchdown run he had where he was pumping his legs with guys on him and powering his way into the end zone. John, you and I have talked about this in our offseason shows. Those are the types of things that's going to get him on the field more. It's being better at pass protection and being able to run in between the tackles, because all 3 of us and everyone that watches the Patriots knows he can be in space. They know he can catch the ball. They know he can return kicks. But if he can do those other things, even at just a competent level, then it allows him to be on the field for a lot more action. And of course, Antonio Gibson, I thought, once again, I mean, it feels like last weekend's fumble notwithstanding, whenever this guy has the ball in his hands, it's a positive play. So it's nice to see a good day from the running backs as well.
2 other things real quick that stood out to me. Red zone efficiency, 4 for 4. And Andy Borregales was 6 for 6 on PATs. I know it's his job to do that, but you can't take those for granted, especially the way he started the season. So I think that's important just to continue building his confidence, and then just taking advantage of the short fields to make sure you scored touchdowns and didn't settle for field goals. Again, for this offense, any kind of rhythm and consistency that they can build off of, I think, is huge. So I do think the red zone efficiency was big today too.
Yeah, huge. And look, it's been a problem for this offense in the last few years, finishing drives and giving this team a chance to win football games. And they did that today. And again, they did it last week too. They just couldn't hold on to the damn ball, but they could today. And that was the difference. You probably could have done something similar to this last week. I do think it's important to point out, man, and I know, look, it's easy to say this coming on the heels of a 42-13 win. This is a good football team on paper. There's talent on this roster in all three phases. This isn't a bad football team. If they play disciplined, clean football, avoid the penalties, take care of the ball, not turn it over, and don't give up big plays, this is a playoff team. This isn't me all of a sudden now being back on the wagon at 2-2, because we're going to really find out what this team is next Sunday night in Buffalo for Sunday Night Football. But I do think when you look at this team on paper, and you mentioned it, John, with the offensive line and how they played, and I think that's going to go a little unnoticed in this performance, but I thought they played pretty well. Drake May was only sacked one time. But on paper, this team has the talent to compete for a playoff spot. And let's not forget, it's the end of September. They're 2-2. Remember now, the last 2 years, they've won 4 games each year. They're 2-2 at the end of the first month of the season, the quarter point of the season. This is a team that's set up to potentially win 6 to 8 to maybe even 9 games. The schedule is still manageable moving forward. The talent is there. If they can put it all together like they did today, and again, you do have to take into account that this was Carolina and they suck. But that being said, there's enough talent on this roster for them to be this competitive on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, and one thing that's been encouraging so far, and this was a big criticism I had of the coaching staff last year, and even to an extent in Belichick's final year, is in those years, especially last year, they didn't really correct mistakes, right? They'd give up big plays in week 2, then again in week 6, then again in week 8. We went through last week, the 17-play drive against the Jaguars and the 19-play drive against Colts, right? You look at this year, the first 2 weeks of the season, their defense gave up a ton of big plays. Last week, not nearly as many. Today, I think, a couple, and it was in garbage time, really, that they gave up. Offensively, you had the horrid game turnover-wise last week, but you didn't turn the ball over in week 2. You didn't turn the ball over today. It feels like they're kind of taking some steps forward. The offensive line feels like it's gelling a little bit better together. And it feels like today, too, like Drake May only had 203 yards today, and maybe he wasn't quite as good as he was against week 2 in Miami, but it just feels, watching him, like he is getting more and more comfortable in this offense. And Kevin, you made the point about Stephon Diggs. If he's at a 5 out of 10, he had 2 30-yard catches today en route to 100 yards. So that's what's been encouraging, is it feels like, look, it's a young team. They are going to make mistakes, but at least it feels like they're kind of building off what they do. And I think that's the next step here, because you have that Buffalo game, John, you mentioned, and then you got a lot of winnable games after that. But do you stack wins on top of each other, or, do you beat Tennessee and lose to Cleveland, right? Or do you win a couple, like, do you beat the Saints but lose to the Falcons in a game you should? Like that, to me, like that going forward over the next month, I think that's a good thing to monitor, because we have seen, to your point, some encouraging signs so far in that regard.
Yeah, John, you mentioned they're a young team. We spent, 35, 40 minutes last Sunday talking about how important it was to win at home. For those young guys to experience a good day at home, it might not seem like much on paper, but it's huge. And it's huge for their confidence. And again, that pressure can ramp up when your home fans are on your ass. So I think just in general, having that day here in Foxborough, you're not back here for a month. So to have that and go out on the road for the next 3 weeks, knowing, we have to do it by ourselves now, especially for the younger guys, I think that's big too.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of their schedule setup, by the way. I think it's really stupid. I mean, again, and this is what the NFL does, because they're so concerned about getting the right matchups on network television and primetime games that they screw up the schedule for all the other teams that aren't necessarily primetime material. And it really, really bugs me. It's so stupid the way that they scheduled this year collectively across the league, not just with the Patriots. But I digress. And nonetheless, you are watching Patriots post-game show. I'm your host, John Serenitas. As always, I'm joined by my partner, WEI's John Lyons. I'm joined by my other partner, Kevin Stone. And you don't see his name there at the bottom, but it's usually John and I, but Kevin joins us for home games. I do want to remind you that we are coming to you live on X, Twitch, our YouTube page, and Facebook. So feel free to join the show. We'd love to hear from you. This is the show for the fans. So if you want to share your thoughts on today's win, today's performance, single out any players that you thought played well, anything you want to talk about, jump in the comments and share your thoughts with us. We would love to hear from you guys. Kevin, you mentioned, of course, you wrote a piece about this week. You mentioned them winning at home, and it hasn't been something that's happened very often in recent years. Of course, that was a topic of conversation this week. They were 3-16 at home since the start of 2023. I kind of feel like that wasn't talked about enough. I kind of felt we were one of the few outlets that talked a lot about that. And they have been so bad here the last 2 years that it kind of flew under the radar in many ways. But it's important. And I think it's important because this crowd left happy today. They feel good about this football team. And again, the sad thing is, and woulda, shoulda, couldas don't win you football games, unfortunately. But the sad thing is, if they take care of the ball last week, they win that game. If they limit the big plays week 1 against Vegas, they might have won that game. This team, at minimum, could be 3-1. But am I crazy here in thinking that this team is probably 4 or 5 plays away, potentially, maybe 6 plays away from being undefeated?
No, I don't think you're crazy, John. And that's that old expression, though, right? Like, so close, but yet so far, because that's really in the NFL, that's the difference, right? Like the good teams that are 3-0 heading into today, or 2-1, and the teams that are 6-2 after 8 games are the teams that win those games. I mean, since the start of 2023, they've had 16 one-possession losses, right? I mean, think about it. If they went 8-8 in those 16 games, we'd be having a totally different conversation about this team. So point being is, yes, they're close to it, but that's also showing the work they need to do, because, okay, yeah, they're close to it, but they still gave up 9 plays over 20 yards in the passing game against the Raiders. Like, that's not what a good team does, right? Or last week, 5 turnovers. That's not what a good team does. Today, right, when you get a punt return touchdown and then you build on it by right after that forcing a punt, then going down on an 80-yard touchdown drive, then forcing a missed field goal, responding on a short field with a touchdown drive. Next thing you know, you're up 21-6. Like, that's what a good team does. And that so many times is what they haven't done in games prior to this, especially at home. I mean, again, we said the 5 turnovers last week, or even week 1, they're winning at halftime, come out, march down the field, throw an interception, and they don't recover, right? Like, today was nice to see, because that's the type of thing that a good team does, is they have a good play and then they build on it. Next thing you know, they're up by a couple scores.
Yeah, look, 2022, they were only 2-2 at home. Well, excuse me. Yeah, 4-4. That would make no sense. 4-4 at home. There's a reason I'm a writer, not a math.
Yeah, they played a couple at Foxborough High.
Math is not Stone's strong suit.
That's that Waltham high education shining through. But
yeah, but even that, Walter, like, and not to go down memory lane, but like, they had 4 turnovers in the second half against Baltimore in 2022 that lost them a game. They had the turnover inside the red zone against Cincinnati on Christmas Eve that lost them a game. Like, those are the things, like, all the good things they did today are the things in those other games they weren't doing.
I think you just called me Walter, but I get it.
Oh, I'm sorry. My other show.
I know. Then to the Christmas Eve game point, if you guys remember right, it was $5 to get in that day. Now, it was freezing cold, I get it, but that's how far they had fallen at home. Look, we've been covering the team for 5 years now. We've seen, 5 home wins, and that's it, or whatever it might be. So they need to start building that momentum in these home games. That's why I thought today was so important. And look, the crucial catch thing, dedicating the day to cancer and all that. It's nice to win on that day, of course, but and especially with the news with Terrell Williams coming out this week too. But just in general, to start building momentum at home again, and we talked about it earlier, the younger guys need to know what that feels like. And I know we're never going back to the mid 2000s or even the late 2000s, but they need to start building momentum at home. I thought today was important for a lot of different reasons.
I agree with you, Walter.
Well, just in my only defense,
do we have to call you Walter or Walt?
Stone was on my other show this week, and he did a great job. So that's what got me confused. So
I think it also illustrates that you're too stretched out thin. Lines.
See, of course, like, I remembered the fact that they fumbled in the red zone on Christmas Eve in a 5-degree game, and then I got Kevin's name wrong.
Yeah, you called him Walt Stone. Um, but it just means you're on too many things. You're on
Yeah.
EI, you're on Nesson,
Yeah.
you're on
Yeah.
Patriots Pulse, you're on Straight Facts, homie. I mean, you are.
Yeah. But I think,
you-
like, to the point of this, like, if they can start winning at home,
You're like, I've had enough of you talking
yeah,
about me.
yeah,
I'm going back
let's
to
move
the
on.
football.
Yeah,
Screw you, Sirius. You
just
can
start
keep
calling you
babbling
Steve or
nonsense.
something, all right? So the point being, though, like, if they can start winning 2, 3, 4 games at home, then, like, you're right, it's not going to be 10, 15 years ago, but could at least be somewhat difficult to play here. I mean that alone would be a nice welcome change. I mean, when was the last time it was really difficult to play in Foxborough? Like, maybe the Cam Newton year, it was kind of difficult. Maybe midway through the
I
Mac
think it's
Jones year.
pre-COVID, to be honest with you.
You might be
I'd
right.
probably
Yeah.
say 18, 19.
Yeah. I mean, and
Probably 18, because even 19, of course, they lost that playoff game to Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee
they
Titans.
lost the regular season finale right before it, right? That would
Miami.
have got them
Yeah,
the 2
that's
seed.
Tom
Yeah.
Brady's last game, of course, the Tennessee lost. But yeah, I would go all the way back to 2018. I'd say 7 years ago.
Yeah. Been a
It was
while.
a tough place to play because if you remember that last Super Bowl run, they were dominant at home. So, I mean, they were dominant against the Chargers. They didn't play great against Jacksonville. That game could have got away from them. They played well in the fourth quarter and pulled it out. But all that being said, there was that fear factor. We talked about this with the Patriots. They've lost their aura. They don't have that aura anymore. And sure, a big part of that aura was Belichick and Brady, but they don't have that aura anymore. And look, I think home field advantage in football matters more than any other sport because of so many factors that you don't have to take into account in other sports. Sure, in other sports, the crowd might be into it. They might be loud. It might be a, quote, tough place to play, but the weather's not a factor. They're indoor. I mean, if it rains in baseball, you don't play. In hockey, the weather's not a factor. In basketball, it's not a factor. And so, yes, I think that for a period of time, not only because they were good, but also, especially later in the season, the weather can be a factor up here. The crowd can be into it. And I will say this. I think this fan base from a home game perspective has become very empathetic there, that they really don't. It's going to take a lot of winning for this fan base to fully come back to home games. I mean, even today, and we all know Stone is like he's Mr. Hyperbole. I mean, you would have thought that we were on the brink of nuclear war today, that there were actually more Panther fans here than he thought. But to his point, even though he was over the top and hyperbolic about it, he's not wrong. I mean, when they were good, they played Carolina during that run here. You'd be lucky to see maybe 1,000 Panther fans here. There was a lot of Panther fans here today. And I think what that says, one, people are willing to sell their tickets now, and they're willing to sell them because this product hasn't been good enough to invest an entire day in and come here on a Sunday. But two, I think it also kind of gives you a sense of where this fan base is right now mentally with this football team, where this organization still has a long way to go to get back into the good graces of this fan base.
Yeah, I was trying to think, when was the last time they had a signature home win? Because look, today is a great win. I don't know if I'd go signature home win. It was probably 2023 when they had the comeback win against Buffalo. But again, that was part of a 4-13 season. So it's been a while since they've had, 2020, they beat the Ravens on Sunday Night Football. 2021, they beat the Titans in late November to get the 1 seed, I think, at that time. But so the point is, it's been a while. And I think, like, one of the good things about playing at home in football, and this is to your point, John, earlier about how important it is, when you have that one big play like the Marcus Jones punt return, then I think it becomes easier to stack good plays on top of each other. And look at the way Carolina came out in the second half. I mean, that first drive the Patriots had was largely non-competitive from Carolina. I mean, it was a 78-yard drive. It could have been a shorter drive than that. Drake May was short on a couple throws. Kayshon Boutte was wide open on his first catch on the left sideline. If that throw was on target, he might have caught and ran it for a touchdown. There was an incompletion to Diggs over the middle, which could have been the same story there, and they end up scoring anyway. But my point is, you got almost no resistance from Carolina to start that second half because you go into halftime up 28-6 at home. I think that does make a pretty big difference.
So just going back to 2020 real quick, stadium was empty. So even that year,
That's a fair
they had
point.
nothing.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that the biggest game, at least we've seen since we've covered the team, is maybe the Marcus Jones punt return against the Jets. I think that was a 10-9 game.
10-3.
Maybe like
Yeah, it was a 3-3
10
game at the time of the punt return.
So it's definitely been a while, and by no means was today a signature win.
See, I
But
remember
again,
that, not your name.
again, they made today fun. And to John's point, just getting fans engaged and willing to spend a full Sunday down here. Look, it's $80 to park. Like, never mind the tailgating prices and all that stuff. Like, it's a long day down here to commit to. And if you're not going to see a good product, people aren't going to show up, and they're going to sell those tickets. So these types of wins, they're important for the longevity or the long-term, what am I looking for? The long-term just sustainability of fans showing back up to the stadium.
Yeah, and one point too, I think, is because we've been very critical of them for this, and deservedly so. I thought they did a much better job managing the end of the first half and beginning of the second half today. That's something that they've had that was a real big problem in the Gerard Mayo era. And you look at today, I mean, they have the big punt return, obviously, near the end of the first half, but they score a touchdown right after the 2-minute warning. Then they force a punt, and then they pretty much run the entire clock out. There's, I think, maybe one play or just the return by the Panthers at the end. So they get a score there. Then they get the first score of the second half. So it's not quite your traditional double score, but it's about as close as it can be. So I think that's something that we've been very critical of them for, and deservedly so. I thought they did a much, much better job at that end of first half, early second half management today.
All right, the mighty Ken Matthias joins the show. Great game today, and Diggs finally over 100 receiving yards. Did Pop Douglas not play today? Could he see his role rescinded? Thanks for checking in, Ken. We appreciate it as always. No, Pop played today. He just wasn't a focal point. In fact, he made a key block in Hunter Henry's touchdown. But he was definitely out there. But again, I mean, I think this is something where this team offensively will be at their best when Stephon Diggs is at his best. Hunter Henry's at his best. Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson are at their best. Those are your primary playmakers. Obviously, Drake May has to be at his best. That's a given. That's why I didn't even mention him. But if those five guys are playing at a high level, those are the five guys you need to be at their best week in and week out. If they are, Pop Douglas is a complementary piece. And again, I mean, I know that when you're 4-13 in back-to-back years and you haven't had a lot of playmaking success offensively, you're going to latch on to certain guys that you perceive to potentially be big play type players for an offense. Pop Douglas has never been that. I think it's time that we pump the brakes on Pop. And yes, I still think he could develop into a nice piece in this offense as the season goes along. But when he doesn't factor into the decision, if you will, like today where he was a non-factor, let's not sit here and be – and I'm not attacking Ken here when I say this, but let's not sit here and be fake shocked that Pop Douglas wasn't a key component in today's win. I mean, again, if you listen to certain people in this market, you would have thought Pop Douglas was the second coming of Troy Brown. He hasn't had that kind of impact. People need to relax on Pop Douglas. If he doesn't show up on the stat sheet, we shouldn't be sitting there going, what? I can't believe it. Believe it. He is not one of your top playmakers, okay? I hate to say it. Anything you get out of him is a luxury. It's like finding $20 in your pocket when you haven't worn a coat in 6 months, okay? It's an added bonus. But at the end of the day, he has not made the impact that people think he has around here the last 2 years. And it doesn't come as a surprise to me that when they have their best win in arguably at least 3 years, that he's not really a factor in the game.
Yeah, I mean, going forward, I would like to see more from him, and I think he can be a good part of this offense. But I found it interesting, like Stephon Diggs was used quite a bit in the middle of the field today. Like that 33-yard catch he had, technically he was lined up outside, but it was a bunched formation, so he was in a reduced split, and he came across the middle for a big catch. It felt like they moved him around a lot. And of course, the 30-yard catch he had, he was lined up on the outside. So again, I think Diggs, they're going to move around a lot. They used some 12 personnel today. It felt like not as much as they used last week. And also just they ran the ball really effectively today. They had 2 long returns. So they ran fewer offensive plays today than Carolina. And again, part of that is they had a punt return touchdown, another long punt return for a short field, and then a missed field goal by Carolina, which was another short field. So they didn't have as many long drives. So to Ken's question,
not to cut you off, John, but don't you wish you saw a little bit more out of the run game, though? That was disappointing. That the jet sweeps were nice.
Yeah.
The reverse was nice. It showed the versatility of the system. But as far as the running game, running the football on a consistent basis, again, there's going to be very few things we can complain about this win. That's one of them for me, though. The offensive line played well. You probably should have run the ball a little bit better.
So I thought that was more a tale of two halves, because before that final drive of the first half where they just kind of ran up the middle 3 times to chew clock, they were averaging 5 yards a carry. And then by the end of the game, they're at 3.6. So it felt like their rushing effectiveness wore off. And some of that is there was some garbage time runs. I felt like in the first half, when they were making an effort to run, they ran the ball pretty well. I mean, to your point, like, I'm not going to sit here and totally disagree with you, because I think I want to see them run the ball well for a whole game. But it felt like when they were making a concerted effort to do it with the first group early on, they did do a good job. And then the game got out of reach after that. So I didn't really have a problem with the running game today, just because, again, going into that final drive of the first half, they were at 5 yards a carry. And after that, it was kind of like, all right, especially after that first touchdown drive in the third quarter, it was almost clock management mode for the rest of the game in my eyes.
Just going back to Pop real quick, after the game, Mike Vrabel made a point to point out the block that John mentioned on the Henry touchdown. So, and he said, look, no one else is going to talk about it but me. But him and Vrabel and Drake May also talked about, this offense is going to be at their best when the open guy is getting the ball. That was a staple for years under Brady, right? Especially in this offense with Josh McDaniels. So if it looks like it did today, and yeah, the numbers aren't great, but it was efficient, it was effective. And John, you mentioned this earlier, they didn't turn the ball over. So if that's how it's going to look, I don't care who's getting the ball. Yeah, you might not get the same role or the same amount of targets as you might have last year or whatever. But if it's going to look like that, I'm okay with everything they did today.
Yeah, of course, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the defense. I mean, in actuality, the starting defense held this Carolina offense to just 6 points. They scored the garbage touchdown there at the end, Dalton to Evans. But by and large, the defense played pretty well. Now, it didn't show up on the stat sheet. One of the things that's been a strength of this team coming into today was their pass rush, which has been one of the best pass rushes in the league. But the defense has been so funky in a sense when you look at them statistically, because while they're one of the best pass rushing units in the league entering today, they also had 35 missed tackles in 3 games. They're one of the worst deep passing defenses in the league from a coverage standpoint in terms of giving up big plays. So they've been very, very Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know what you're going to get on a week-to-week basis. They only had 1 sack today, but they held this Carolina offense to 337 yards of total offense. The starting unit held them to 1 score. They played really well, and I asked Vrabel about that after the game, just his thoughts after they scored there. How are they able to adjust and get into a flow and play good defense? And one of the things he pointed out to was that guys just got comfortable and they started playing and they weren't thinking and they were doing what they were supposed to. And again, I think when we talk about the talent on this team, there's a lot of talent on this team on paper, especially on that side of the ball. There's still question marks there, but this defense moving forward, in my opinion, should start to get better, especially with Christian Gonzalez back now. He started today, struggled a couple of times with his good buddy Tet McMillan, but overall I thought he did a nice job. What are your thoughts on the defense? How do you think they did today? Is there something there, if you're a Patriots fan, to get excited about with this unit moving forward?
Yeah, I think on the whole, the defense played great today. I mean, if you want to nitpick one thing, they've given up an opening drive touchdown in 3 out of their 4 games. In the other game, they gave up 1 on the second drive against Miami. But much like the Pittsburgh game, they gave up 2 early touchdowns, and then they dominated the rest of the game up until the very end when they were worn out because the Patriots kept turning the ball over. I thought today, that first drive, and maybe you guys had a better vantage point being there than I did at home watching, it felt like they were playing a lot of soft zones. There was a lot of open holes there in coverage. And then that seemed to tighten up after that first drive.
Which I didn't understand, by the way, John. This Carolina skill group is not very good.
Especially with Leggett out.
The former Notre Dame standout, he was on his way to a 100-yard receiving game pretty early on. He was the primary target. But to your point, they were playing a lot of zone. They seem to be playing soft. I didn't understand that. If this is the one game on your schedule where you say, you know what, the hell with it. We're going to play a bunch of man coverage. We're going to do a bunch of TE stuff up front with our stunt game. We're going to blitz them. We're going to disguise. We're going to do some sim stuff, and we're going to get after them. This isn't a game where you need to play off, especially with Gonzalez back and where they knew they could play the matchup game with McMillan. They didn't need to play off as much as they did. To your point, I thought that was peculiar. But I asked Jalen Hawkins about it in the locker room after the game, and Hawkins said to me, and he brought up a good point, a point that I think you'll appreciate, John, from a coaching standpoint, is he talked about the fact that he said, look, they script their first 15. They know what they want to do. They stick to that script. Whereas for us, we're reacting to them. So them scoring early, yeah, you kind of get shell-shocked, but you see what they're going to do. You see what their mindset is because those first 15 are scripted, and you adjust from there. And that looks like that was the case today. It looks like what happened today. Once they got a picture of what they're going to do or what their plan was through that drive, they were able to adjust and get comfortable.
It's funny you mention that because I remember thinking at halftime, like, oh, the first scripted drive looked pretty well, and then not so much since then. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's a good point by Hawkins. And I wonder, too, if maybe they played some extra soft zones that first series, because not just the scripted part, but it was Christian Gonzalez's first action of the regular season. So maybe they wanted to just kind of ease the defense as a whole in. And then again, it didn't feel like they played a ton of man the game itself, just maybe some tighter zones as the game went on and mixing in some man as well. And I thought the defensive line on the whole was really good in this game. They totally shut down the Carolina running game in the first half. And then in the second half, I mean, Bryce Young, he was only sacked one time, but he was under pressure a lot in this game. You saw a lot of throwaways, a lot of short throws, a lot of sped up plays. And it felt like, look, the Patriots blitzed it a little bit, but it felt like a lot of this was Milton Williams and Christian Barmore had maybe their best game overall as a tandem. I mean, that second half against Miami was terrific, but for a full 60 minutes or 54 minutes till they got pulled, it felt like this was kind of their best game as a tandem so far.
I'm glad you brought up Barmore. Look, I think Milton Williams is going to be worth every penny you paid him, and it's only going to get better. And he talks like he's, the big-time free agent guy, and he knows he has to make plays. But has Barmore been quiet to you guys, or is it just me?
I don't think so. When you look at statistically, coming into today, Milton Williams and Christian Barmore were the top two defensive tackles in the league in quarterback pressures. So
I think some of the traditional stats, maybe.
But it shows up on film when you watch them, though.
Yeah, I would agree that because I think like today, Christian Barmore, if you look at the stat sheet, he had 0 tackles in 0 sacks. But then, like, I mean, you guys are there too, like watching him, you're like, wow, this dude's making an impact today. Like he's pushing the pocket, he's speeding. And part of that is Bryce Young's mobile, and Bryce Young, when he gets under pressure, just throws the ball away quickly or he runs. So you're probably not going to stack up a bunch of sacks against a guy like that. But again, I thought they were both pretty impactful today, especially as the game went on. And to your point, Kevin, I mean, what's that? 180 or $200 million combined in those two? You're going to need them to be impactful every week. And I thought they really were today.
Yeah, no, look, the defense overall was good today. The only other guy I slightly worry about is Carlton Davis. He had the early PI. I just feel like he's been slow to kind of get going this season. Again, that might just be a me thing. You guys are watching it from a coaching eye, but I feel like you can get more out of him right now. But overall, I think the defense was fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is Carlton Davis is your traditional press cover 2 corner. That's where he's at his best, where he can play in that press 2 funnel flat, get his hands on line up on the X, get his hands on him, reroute him inside, match, read number 2, and then go from there. That's where I think he's at his best. Can he play man coverage? Sure, absolutely. He's a big physical corner. And I think once you get inside the 30, I think that's a real strength of his, that he can play man-to-man coverage. But I think when you look at his overall game, he is that quintessential cover 2 funnel flat corner who's not afraid to come up and support the run. He's a big corner. He's physical. He's not afraid to take on blockers and mix it up and make a tackle. He hasn't necessarily been in that situation thus far this season. And let's not forget, with Gonzalez out, teams offensively had more leeway to attack this Patriot secondary. So I do feel there was a lot more pressure on him. And I know some people will say, well, there should be pressure on him. He's a free agent signing. He got a lot of money to come here. And I get that. But remember now, the key to football, even more so than any other sport, is it's imperative that you play to guys' strengths within your scheme. We've been hearing this about Drake May and Josh McDaniels and that marriage all offseason. Well, that applies to defense as well. It's important that the guys you brought in fit your scheme, but your scheme also has to play to their strengths. And I'm not sure, especially with Gonzalez out, if defensively the Patriots have been able to do that with Carlton Davis. I do think you're going to see improved play from him moving forward, because I think they're going to be able to do more blended coverage stuff where they can blend covers and play man on one side, zone on the other. And I think you're going to see him in more of those cover to press, funnel flat alignments where he can get really physical at the line of scrimmage and reroute guys. That's where he's at his best. The mighty Ken Matthias joins us again. Does this team have somewhat a compete level to play Buffalo next week and keep it close? Ken, thanks for checking in. Yeah, I think they can play with Buffalo. Listen, at the end of the day, Buffalo had a hard time with New Orleans today, and New Orleans is hot garbage. So if New Orleans can go up there, and it was a beautiful day, I mean, if New Orleans goes up there in mid-December, I mean, that they're looking to pack their bags pretty quickly as soon as they fall behind 7-0, 14-0. They're looking for the bus and going back to the airport to go home. But on a beautiful day like today up there, they played a pretty competitive game. So if New Orleans can go up there and hang with Buffalo, the Patriots can do that as well. And I know last year's season finale was a give-up game for Buffalo. They didn't play anybody. But the Patriots, during this recent years of struggle, if you will, they've played Buffalo pretty tough. If you remember in 2023, they went up there and they were competitive with him. Cam Newton's year, if he doesn't fumble, they have a chance.
Yeah, they win that game if he doesn't fumble.
Yeah. So do I think they can hang with Buffalo next Sunday night? Absolutely. They have the talent to be able to be competitive in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Buffalo's the better team, but I would agree, John, with you in that should be a competitive game. I mean, we sat here earlier in the show and said, hey, the Patriots are 4 or 5 plays away from having 3 wins, maybe 4, right? And look, obviously their competition hasn't been that great so far this year, but again, that should be, to me, a competitive. You've improved your offensive line, you've improved your defensive line. Like, those are 2 things that should travel to a hostile environment. Now, I'm curious to see, how do the rookies handle this? Because, like, Craig Woodson's been your starting safety all year. I think he's done a pretty solid job, but now he's going to be, against Josh Allen in a hostile environment on the road, right? Like, and same thing with Will Campbell. I thought Will Campbell had a really good game today. He was good down in Miami, to his credit, but now he's going to be, in Buffalo Sunday Night Football. How does he handle it the first time? Travion Henderson, like, how do these young guys that you're relying on, even you can make the case this is the highest stakes game Drake May's played so far in his career. And I know, like, his first start against Houston was a big one, sure, and he had some others, but like, they're 2-2 going against Buffalo, who's 4-0 on Sunday Night Football. How does Drake May handle it? How does some of these other guys handle it? So I think that, I mean, even Christian Gonzalez, this is probably the highest leverage game he's played in his entire career, because they've been terrible the first couple of years he was here. So it's just, I think you're going to learn a lot. And I personally agree with John. I think they should be. Buffalo's the better team, but they have enough to be competitive. I think we'll learn something about their poise and their mental toughness on Sunday night.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we're talking compete level, there's no doubt in my mind they can hang with Buffalo. This is not last year's team or even 2 years ago team. They're not just going to quit if they go down, 14, 21-0. So, yeah, they have the compete level, especially with Mike Vrabel as their head coach. And there is an element of playing for Terrell Williams now on that defense, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. But we just talked about Christian Barmore and Milton Williams. This is a huge night for them, especially against that running offense. Specifically Cook with Buffalo. So I think if they have a big night and you slow that rushing attack down, they can hang in this game easily. So, and look, they won here. What was it, 2 years ago? When Marcus Jones had a big night then too. So they're not going to be intimidated by the atmosphere or anything like that. Now, it's the last time the Patriots will play in that stadium. So I wonder if that Buffalo crowd is a little bit more jacked up for, the big bad Patriots. But in terms of compete level, no doubt in my mind, I can hang around.
And Ken checks back in. Can they have a slim chance of beating Buffalo and containing Josh Allen in the pocket or him scrambling? Yes, Ken. Ken, we think to a man that they can compete in this game, Ken. We think that they can contain Josh Allen from the standpoint of they're not going to let him run wild. Josh Allen is Josh Allen. He's an effing unicorn. He's going to make plays, okay? You don't go into a game like that if you're Zach Kerr and the defensive staff and say to yourselves, we're going to stop Josh Allen and we're going to make those mediocre receivers that he plays with beat us. No, you're not. You're not going to stop him. You hope to contain him enough that he doesn't beat you single-handedly, and that, to Kevin's point, they have to hand the ball off to Cook more. They have to rely on other people to beat you. It's more about slowing him down than stopping him. But we know that that's way easier said than done, to Ken's point, that you can say you're going to do that, but good luck doing it. He's a dude. He's one of the best for a reason. He's the reigning NFL MVP for a reason. He's real deal. So, yes, I think they can go up there and play a competitive game, and I'll take it a step further. Yes, I think they can go up there and win because on paper, I think this is a talented football team. You're starting to see them, and I asked Hawkins about this too. What is the player's comfort level in this defense now? And he basically said, we're at a place now where we're not thinking as much. We're just going out there and playing. And that's great to hear. Stephon Diggs saying that he's a 5 out of 10 right now in terms of his comfort level. That's a good thing. That means that he's got a lot left in that tank that he can tap into and be an even better player as the season goes on. And let's not forget, he's going to be highly motivated to play in this game. I know that, last year he was in Houston, he tore the ACL, but he's going to be very motivated to play in this game. It's a division opponent. It's a rivalry game. He wants to prove that, hey, I should still be here with my boy Josh. I'm going to make you pay for not letting me be here. He's got plenty to play for. And I'm not saying he's not happy here because he certainly is. You can definitely see that after the game. But all of that being said, he's going to be highly motivated. I think this is a prove-it game on national television for this Patriots organization. Trust me when I tell you, they're going to come out to play. This will be a more competitive game than people think. Now, if it ends up being a blowout, then the three of us are going to look like the Three Stooges, and people are going to say, why the hell should I read their content or watch these clowns? It'll be a valid question. But I don't believe that'll be the case. I think that they're going to come to play.
I'm glad, Kevin, you brought up James Cook because I feel like he gets overshadowed by Josh Allen. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. He runs hard, finds space. He can run away from people, stacks up yards, both in the run game and the pass game. And a lot of people, when they talk about Josh Allen's development, they point to, oh yeah, then he matured in his second year and then he got Stephon Diggs. And everyone talks about Stephon Diggs going there. They don't talk enough about Joe Brady taking over that offense a few years ago and changing it to be just as much James Cook centric as it is Josh Allen centric. And I think that's made a huge difference. And that's really elevated that offense. And I think that has a direct link to Josh Allen's turnover numbers going way down over the past 20 games. And I think that's going to be a guy. Look, Josh Allen's the priority in this game. We know. But they're going to have to spend significant resources containing James Cook because even if you hold Josh Allen down as much as you can hold a guy like that down, if you don't contain James Cook, then you're going to lose the game like that. So they have two huge tasks in front of them, and they did a pretty good job against Ashton Genty in week 1, albeit he's a rookie, but a very talented back there in Vegas. And they did a good job, I thought, against Chuba Hubbard today, especially in the first half when it was at least moderately competitive in this game. But that's a really good backfield with Josh Allen and James Cook. And that's going to be a big, to me, that's going to be priority 1 and 2 for this defense this next Sunday.
And it's so cliche, but tackling is going to be massive, right? Like, I thought today was the best tackling day they've had so far this year. So you can't go backwards now, especially against that backfield and Josh Allen. So, again, we'll probably hear it 50 times from Mike Vrabel and players this week, but tackling is going to be massively important.
Yeah, Matthias set us up with a little segue there. We were going to preview the game, and we ended up just kind of rolling into it because of Ken's question. So thank you for checking in, Ken, and setting it up there. And by the way, how ballsy is it to go through life being nicknamed Chuba? Chuba Purdy, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, to be comfortable in your own skin, to go through life with a stupid-ass nickname like that, that's hey, kudos to those
Just when you
guys.
play in the NFL, you can
Tip
get
your
away
hat
with
to
it.
them or something, Stone. I
Yeah.
don't have one on. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I guess when
Lions, tip your hat to them.
Yeah, I guess when you play in the NFL, you can get away with that.
Right. You're making a lot of money. You're a
Yeah.
celebrity athlete. Everything is great.
Yeah.
So you don't care that your nickname is Chuba.
And by the way, we didn't mention either. That Buffalo offensive line next week is really good too. Like that is going to be that Patriots front seven against the combination of the Bills O-line, Josh Allen, and James Cook. That's probably going to be the battle that decides the game. Obviously, the caveat being, unless the Patriots start turning the ball over again like they did last year in Buffalo. But that's going to be a real battle.
Yeah, and Buffalo's pass rush, it's really good.
Yeah.
And the Patriots offensive line, which has been much maligned in recent years, even this year, they're going to have their hands full with those guys. That is a very, very good pass rush, starting in the middle with Ed Oliver and then going outside of there. Of course, Joey Bosa signs here this offseason. You've got a lot of talent on that front, line, AJ Epinesa. And look, here's the thing. That Buffalo defense is really good at all three levels. Their linebackers are athletic. They can play all three downs. They can play the matchup game with tight ends and backs. So Josh McDaniels and this offensive staff, they're going to have their hands full scheming and game planning against this defense because, again, I think it's a defense that has a lot of talent and can do a lot of different things. And you know this, John, those are the defenses that are hard to play against. When you're playing against defenses that are in sub-packages a lot and move guys in and out throughout the course of the game, you can kind of cater your game plan to what packages they're going to be in and how you want to attack those packages. But when you're going up against defenses that can play a lot of the same guys all three downs and can do different things with them, that's hard to prepare for. So this is going to be a challenging game for the Patriots. The Patriots are clearly the underdog here, as they should be. But look, I think this is a different animal now than with this Patriots team. It's not 2 years ago where you can kind of see that it was the beginning of the end of the Belichick era. It's not last year where you didn't necessarily feel that level of confidence for them going into a game like this. This is a different animal. And it's not just Vrabel and the attitude he's brought here and the way that he does things and they do things now. The roster is better. It's a more talented roster. And I do think that this is a hungrier group of players. They have something to prove. Like I said earlier, they're going to go in there on Sunday night with a chip on their shoulder, wanting to prove that, hey, we're good enough to compete in this division, and we're good enough to compete for a playoff spot. Of course, Buffalo has dominated the division the last 6 years. But this is a big one for the Patriots. And again, I have confidence that they can hang in there with them because they've proven, despite sucking ass the last few years, that they can still do it.
Yeah, and I think if you go up there, obviously the goal is to win. But if you go up there and that game is you don't turn the ball over, you go to toe-to-toe with them, and that's a one possession or 10-point game, even if you lose, you can at least walk away heading into a stretch against New Orleans, Tennessee, and Cleveland, feeling like, all right, we can beat these teams if we just kind of continue doing what we've been doing. So again, your goal is to go up there and win. But I think at a minimum, this team is good enough now and coached well enough now that they should be able to compete with a good team. I mean, they went toe-to-toe with a Washington team in a joint practice that went to the NFC Championship game last year. And I know it's not apples to apples, but this would be kind of another step in that direction. So, yeah, I mean, I think they should be able to go up there and be competitive for 60 minutes.
And I know it's only October, or will be October, but if you get weather that night, special teams is going to play a big factor. So I'm curious to see what Andy Borregales and really the entire kickoff unit, the punt return unit, all of them do under that kind of pressure as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Kevin. I agree. And the wind is always a factor there. We know that. And if the wind is a factor next Sunday night, special teams, it will affect special teams. And special teams, of course, as we saw today, could be a factor next week. They certainly were a factor today. And again, this Patriots team, like any team, at any level of football, you want to win in all three phases. This today was a three-phase win for the New England Patriots. All right, final minute here, gentlemen. We got to wrap it up. It's getting dark out now. We're sitting here in the shadows, being stoned, being weirdos in the auxiliary booth. Final thoughts here, Lions, on today's big 42-13 win over the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, really encouraging game. I mean, they played well offensively, huge special teams plays, really good defense, especially after that first drive. And again, some of those key situations we've been worried about before, whether it was the special teams moments, that end of the first half stuff, they did a great job with those things today. So, yeah, look, Carolina stinks. They weren't really into it in the second half. But you know what? This is what you got to do against a team like that. I thought it was a great win and a really encouraging game overall.
Yeah, I just go back to the importance of winning at home and getting these fans back, not necessarily on the bandwagon, but making it worth their time to spend a full Sunday down here, and hopefully they can build off it. And this is no mind-boggling statement, but 2-2 feels a lot better than 1-3 heading to Buffalo next week. This was a big day for them.
The Patriots are back, baby. I'm kidding. They're not, but this was a nice win. And to Kevin's point, to win like this at home, it's been a long time coming. It's nice to see. You give the fans something to be happy about, and you give them hope. And I think at the end of the day, that's all they want right now. They want to see that this thing is heading in the right direction. I think a win like this is a sign that it's heading in the right direction, but a lot of it is going to come down to what they do in the next 4 weeks. How competitive are you next Sunday night? Could you potentially upset Buffalo? You should go on the road and beat Tennessee. You should go on the road and beat New Orleans. You should come back home and beat Cleveland. Those are all winnable games. If they lose any one of those games, then the conversation once again needs to pivot to they're not ready to win, they don't know how to win, and they're going to disappoint us. But if somehow in these next 4 games, this football team can come out of it 3-1, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape the rest of the season, and I think they could put themselves in a position where they could potentially make a playoff run come December. And Kevin, you have said this all offseason. You've said this now for 2 years, really. All you want in December is to see New England Patriots in the hunt. That's all you want to see. And I think at the end of the day, if we can get to December and they're in the hunt, it's going to be a successful season around here, and there's going to be a lot to look forward to moving forward. But nonetheless, today was a good day to be a Patriots fan. Big 42-13 win over the Carolina Panthers. For John Lyons, Walt Stone, I'm Jon Sirianidis. We'll be back with you next week. Lions and I will be talking us after Sunday Night Football next week, but we'll be back with you to break that one down. Hopefully it's a Patriots win. For these guys, I'm Jon Sirianidis. Enjoy your week, and as always, be healthy. Peace.